We go. Five, four, three, two, one.
Ready or not, here I come. You can't hide. Gonna find you and take it slowly.
Welcome back to the show. Yes, we're in our third segment of the show. So glad to have my next guest with me. I've known him for several years. He has helped me to be much smarter when I talk about electronics. All I do is just repeat what he says, but I also give him the credit too because he's one of the brightest minds that I know. He and his colleague both over at the Consumer Technology Association. We're talking about Senior Director of Marketing and Research. We're talking about Steve Koenig. What's going on, Steve? How you doing?
Hey, I'm well. Thank you, Paul. Great to be with you.
Hey, great to have you with me, buddy. And I just enjoy talking to you because you help us to understand electronics on a level that we can understand. Because sometimes I can geek people out when I talk about electronics, but they look at me strange, but you explain it in a way that we can definitely understand. So welcome back to the show, my friend, and it's an honor to have you on with me. So, Steve, let's talk about, you've been traveling lately, man. Where you been?
Wow, where haven't I been? I guess is the more appropriate question. Yeah, well, most recently I just got back from Shanghai for our second annual CES Asia event. We've long had for nearly 50 years the CES there in Las Vegas. But in 2015, we embarked on a new venture in China, in Shanghai, CES Asia, to really provide kind of a gateway event to that Asia Pacific market. And what an event. It was more than twice the size of our inaugural show in 2015. The quality of the booths were more Vegas-like. Fantastic. Yeah, so a long flight, but definitely worth it.
And Steve, when you see things going on in the Asia market, because you've been following tech and marketing for a while, do you see a trend that's really taken hold in the Asian market that you may have thought might not take hold, but it did?
Well, it's interesting you ask because we just completed some research in the Asia Pacific region, and we surveyed over 5,500 consumers in China, Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, and Malaysia. And really what we discovered is that China, by this time, is showing all the signs of a fully developed, almost you could say westernized technology market. Now, those other four countries, however, are much more nascent in nature, and there are a lot of different elements that really distinguish them from China in a number of ways that we can talk about. But the theme that is, or thread that is very common throughout all of those emerging markets is a real hunger for our industry's latest innovations. And that's whether it's a smartphone or a connected car. And in the industry, we talk about this as leapfrogging. These consumers, although they may be buying tech for the first time or have only been in the tech market, if you like, for just a few years, they want the latest innovations, and they're not happy with maybe yesterday's technology. So they're going to follow a very different, if not accelerated, technology adoption path.
Wow. And when it comes to this market, are we seeing them jumping on the name brand merchandise like the iPhone, the Samsung Galaxy? Are they using kind of lower end devices that are a little bit more economical than what we see here in the States?
Yeah, so another great question. And I think generally speaking, technology budgets are considerably less in these Asia Pacific markets and other emerging markets around the world, like in the Middle East, Africa, etc. But here again, consumers are very attracted to these global brands like Apple, like Samsung, In some cases, I think they're largely aspirational in nature because of the high cost of these devices relative to other options. And this is why we've long said, and a number of brands are starting to compete in those markets with more low-cost devices in order to address the lower budget consumer within those markets. So in China, for example, when you get outside the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, really you have a mosaic of more regional brands, local brands, all of them domestic, and you're hard pressed to find more of the international brands like a Samsung or Apple. But in the big cities, they have Apple stores too, and you see a number of consumers utilizing the latest technology products. The same here, like in the United States.
And are we starting to see that trend in the United States now? Remember when the smartphones, really came out here, everyone had to get a name brand, but we're starting to see some lower end economical brands that other carriers are having now. So is that because they want to reach more people here in the States so that they can saturate the market, kind of like what they did in China as well?
Well, it's a competitive market, and consumers continue to look for value, and not everybody wants to be an Apple person and buy into that. It's pretty much iOS and Android at this stage, but yeah, there are many strata of consumers in terms of their adoption, in terms of their technology budgets. So even as we are a very mature market, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're all buying premium branded products. There are a number of consumers here in the United States and in Western Europe as well who have very small tech budgets, but still, again, are demanding the latest innovations. So there is a lot of opportunity globally for lower cost devices, but more and more we see consumers aspiring to global brands and telling us that they want access to those brands. And a number of the premium brands in technology like Apple, like Samsung, are starting to market more lower end devices and actually develop lower end devices to tap those consumers, mostly in emerging markets like China and India, where there are just literally and figuratively millions of new customers coming online each and every month, but also to reach customers looking for value in mature markets like the United States.
Steve, I remember at the Consumer Electronics Show 2016 when you gave a speech about market trends that we're watching. And I've always loved how you talked about the Magnificent Seven, and then you broke it down to the triumvirate. So for our listeners and viewers out there who may not be aware of some of the terms, why don't you explain what is the Magnificent Seven and what is that triune or that triumvirate?
Sure. Well, when you say Magnificent Seven, I'm sure most of our listeners will immediately think of the Western from, I think, the 1960s with Yul Brynner and many other famous actors. But Technology's Magnificent Seven is a group of 7 products that really dominate global consumer tech spending, which is just under about $1 trillion US. So again, global spending just under $1 trillion US. And the Magnificent Seven group of products, which includes TVs, digital cameras, PCs, that means laptops, desktops, tablets, and then your smartphones and feature phones as well. These 7 products represent an astonishing 80%, that's 80%, of global consumer tech spending. So that surprises quite a few folks who are perhaps uninitiated to more of the global consumer tech trends. And within the Magnificent Seven, the Yul Brynner of technology, if you like, is certainly the smartphone, which that device alone accounts for roughly 41% of global consumer tech spending. So 41 cents of every global tech dollar spent out there is spent on a smartphone. And that just really, I think, draws a line under the importance and the centricity of smartphones in our digital lives today.
And, Steve, when we look at the smartphone, it's really making us not really have PCs anymore if we choose not to, laptops. So do we see any of these technologies or innovations possibly maybe not going away completely, but slowing down some?
Well, that's right, and that's where in my remarks at CES earlier this year, I talked about technology's triumvirate, and the triumvirate there is composed of the three computing devices, if you like. So PCs, principally, and tablets. So desktops, laptops, and tablets. And very much like the Roman triumvirate thousands of years ago, there was a lot of competition there, and one of those, Caesar, was assassinated. So will the same thing kind of happen with the tech triumvirate? And that really is a reference to that, what we think is an inevitable collapse of product from those three devices into two, which will very likely be like a desktop potentially, but the smartphone is really the other piece of that, actually. So smartphone plus a hybrid PC would be the maybe the duo, the dynamic duo. So maybe I'll talk about that next year.
And you remember you broke it here first. So when you're up on the stage, say, Paul and I talked about it. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, so it is true, but we've seen that over time with this kind of steady collapse of products, and the smartphone has really been one of those poster children for that dynamic, and that it is we've called it the Swiss Army knife of technology. You can do so much with it, and it's more powerful these days than PCs were even just say 5 years ago. We have 8 core processors on board smartphones, and so really I think only some of our latest innovations from a consumer tech standpoint, thinking about like virtual reality and augmented reality, are really only beginning to come close to tapping into the real horsepower from a processing standpoint of these smartphones, but are actually really handheld computers.
And Steve, when we look at the tablets now, I know my wife just got one. It kind of looks like a little laptop, but she can take off the screen and go into tablet mode, or she can keep the keyboard on there and start typing away. So are we starting to see kind of like that marriage right now of those two devices?
We are. They have convertible PCs as one name, hybrid PCs is another. But yes, that's been an emergent trend over the past 24 to 18 months, and we would expect that to continue. So devices that look very much like a laptop, but can be utilized in that sense or just a tablet sense, like you're describing the ones that have the snap-off display, or others that wrap around. Like the Lenovo Yoga is one example. So expect to see a lot more of those. And then there are just other wholly different type products like the Surface that are really re-engineering that whole laptop space.
Another question that kind of comes to my mind when it comes to the triumvirate is when we look at the tablet, the tablet really had a hard push to be where it's at today, because I think maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we were talking about the tablet at the Consumer Electronics Show, and then it kind of went away for a while. And then a few years later, it came back. So the tablet kind of had a tough toe to where we see it today.
Well, it's true. And I think we've talked about for years and years kind of this screen size squeeze. And in the beginnings of the tablet market, there was a noticeable gap in screen sizes between smartphones and tablets, and then at the higher end of the screen spectrum, from a computing mobility standpoint, laptops with up to 17-inch screens. But now you look at the tablet market, and it's vastly different. Again, we've established the laptop market is starting to morph as well, but smartphones, there's some, when you think about like the iPhone 6 Plus.
Oh yeah.
Really, really almost like a tablet in your pocket. And so here again, I think is one way that the tablets may be squeezed out. But we've started to see now, when you think about the iPad Pro, very large screen tablets, and we're starting to find these devices creeping into more of the business and enterprise type side of the marketplace as more use cases and utility are really found for these products, which have clearly inspired consumers in a number of ways, but more productivity endeavors. And I think Surface is another very tablet-looking device, but has all the horsepower and functionality of a full-blown laptop.
Yeah, I tell you, my tablet now has more than one of my desktops that I've had since the Miami Vice days, Steve. That's how far it goes. But when we look at going over to smart TVs now and displays, the question that a lot of people ask me is to 4K or not to 4K. That is the question, especially when we're starting to see, other technology that may come out. I remember I was at the Samsung press conference last year at the Consumer Electronics Show, and they were talking about 8K. So a lot of people are like, wait, should I spend my money on 4K and wait for 8K? What are the trends showing out there?
Sure. Well, the reality is if you're buying a new TV that is of a screen size roughly 40 inches or up, you're going to get 4K pretty much whether you like it or not, because that's just the direction that the panel makers have steadily been moving towards. And I think by holiday time this year, virtually all those larger screen size TVs will be 4K. This past holiday in 2015, we saw a pretty good mix, and some of the 1080p or full HD large screen sets were the real value proposition there, with the step up being 4K. Well, now it's going 4K, but there's another innovation in display that I would point out to your listeners, and that's high dynamic range, HDR. So that's something to look for paired with 4K. And high dynamic range, in a nutshell, is an expanded color and contrast capability of the set. And there are some badges out there on products that you can look for, that it's kind of like the good housekeeping seal, so to speak. But UHD Premium, if you see that label on a box or on a TV, that matches a kind of premium certification level as prescribed by the UHD Alliance, which is another alliance of TV manufacturers that have agreed upon what should represent the pinnacle of display technology for LCD TV. So that's something to look for. And there's going to be more HDR content, and it's really compelling. And I would say, if you can and you're in the stores, try and get a demo, because I think you will be mightily impressed. And it's just another innovation in display going beyond lines of resolution. Like we stepped up from full HD to 4K resolution. Now we're layering in better contrast, better color quality, and that's actually what has Hollywood very, very excited, and more excited, in fact, than 4K.
And Steve, when it comes to the getting a demo at a store, I always tell people, make sure they're not showing you a cartoon, because cartoon will give you the best resolution. So if someone is really getting a demo to really get kind of like the full impact of how it's going to look in their house, it's probably best for them to watch something like the news or something that doesn't have a lot of special effects or things like that. Because I got fooled once about 10 years ago. I was watching Aladdin on the TV, and I was like, boy, this HD TV is going to look like this in my house. Then I watched the news and watched sports. I'm like, wow, this is not what I had in mind.
Yeah, I would advise listeners to try to get a demo of the type of content that they enjoy watching and that they watch most. And I think in most cases, a good sales representative is going to be able to facilitate that. So, yeah, to your point, I mean, there are certain types of content, action films and so forth, that I think a lot of the expert reviewers deploy to kind of test the limits of display and their ability to replicate that fast-moving content. Sports, I think, is a common demo unit, especially around different playoff times. You'll see a lot of the sports games are rebroadcast shown on those. But yeah, demos are incredibly important, whether you're looking at video or audio, and that's why we've long advocated for consumers to get out, go to a store, and speak with a sales rep, get a demo, get your hands on the technology, so to speak, and experience that for yourself, because that's really the best way to evaluate our industry's latest innovations.
Awesome. And Steve, before we let you go, what happened with OLED displays? Did it just, was it too expensive for the market, or whatever happened with that innovation?
Well, I mean, you've pretty much got it. Yes, it is. It's still here, but it is still very expensive to produce. And that's one of the reasons that we're kind of seeing OLED waiting in the wings, and probably will make its stage debut on the retail scene, on the market scene, probably in the early years of the next decade. The fact is that our industry and the engineers at a lot of the display manufacturers have done exceptionally well at really pushing the limits of LCD technology through a variety of different ways. If you really dig into the details and read a lot of the display technology fine print, you'll hear terms and you'll see terms like quantum dot technology and subpixels and so forth. All this is tremendous display innovation that is allowing LCD TVs to get a lot more mileage. And I think that's why, given that it's such a hyper competitive market, we'll see LCD really representing the majority. There's great value, there's great display quality. OLED is a next decade story, I think. But
Okay.
it's still here, and you can still buy those. They're just usually 2 to 3 times more than what you might pay for a comparable LCD set today.
And I know it's beautiful too. You know, when you watch a demo of that, it's like, wow, this is poetry in motion. And Steve, before we let you go, how can our viewers and listeners find out more about the Consumer Technology Association? And we're only about 6 months away, Steve, CES 2017.
Every time we talk, it seems like it's just getting closer. But you're exactly right. It's hard to believe we're almost at the half-year point. But sure, if listeners would like to learn more about Consumer Technology Association, they can visit us on the web at cta.tech, so cta.tech, and we'd be delighted to have them check out that website. We've got a lot of great content. If you're curious about the latest innovations, if you want to get some more how-tos and so forth, we have a lot of resources available there, from recycling to buying new technology. So and Paul, we'll see you very soon, I guess, before we know it, back in Vegas for CES.
Tell me about it. And don't be surprised if you see me at some of the overseas ventures, because I was like, I need to go to CEA, the tech show in Asia.
Yeah, CES
that was
Asia,
amazing.
that's right.
That was amazing. But Steve, hey, always great to catch up with you, my friend. And thank you so much for all your insight and your time. And we'll have you back on in a few, and we can talk about what's leading up to, I guess, the holiday crunch, holiday shopping, and all that other great stuff. But hey, thank you so much for your time, my friend, and safe journeys when you're out there, because you're on the road more than I am.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely be watching all those tech trends and leading up to holiday, and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Awesome. The awesome Steve Koenig, thank you so much for joining me, my friend. Gosh, one of the brightest minds that I know. And remember, when I first started the Tech Zone, I said I'm going to have experts from the Consumer Technology Association join me. Real soon, I'm going to have Sean Dubervac join me. Sean is chief economist. I'm sorry, Dr. Sean Dubervac. Sean is so cool. He doesn't even correct me when I call him Sean. He lets me call him Sean. How many doctors out there do you know that, huh? We'll let you do that. Sean Dubervac. Dr. Sean Dubervac will be joining me on one of our shows too. Don't forget, E3, I will be there live beginning on Sunday. So watch me on my social media. I'll be posting some videos, some interviews, and the Tech Zone show for next week will all be E3 related. So Sean, get ready for that. Not Dr. Sean Dubervac, but Sean Nickerson, who's in the control room, making everything sound right. You ready for it, Sean? You ready, Sean? Gaming, let's go. Are you ready for it? I'm Paul Amadeus Lane. This is the Tech Zone. I have to get out of here. Talk to you soon. Me in my pink salmon shirt and my pink salmon bow tie. Don't forget, go to my website. You can see the video, all that other great stuff. Take care. I love you guys. And remember, wherever you are, there you're at. No, be good to yourself and love your families. Take care.